Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Devaa Haley Mitchell. I'm the co-founder of the Shift Network and the founder of the Inspiring Women with Soul series. I have here with me Daisy Lee, who is someone that is a newer addition to our Shift faculty. Daisy is the founder of Radiant Lotus Qigong, and she conducts workshops and instructor certifications around the world. She's also someone who is focused on women's health, and she has empowered countless women in their self-care and healing. So welcome to you, Daisy. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much, Devaa. It's great to be here and so lovely to meet you.
So I wanted to just begin with the title of this session. You titled it Qigong, a Tool for Mindful Revolution. And when people think of Qigong, I think they don't often think of revolution going along with that word. So maybe you can share a little bit more about how Qigong is a revolution in your mind.
Well, revolutions can be quiet. Often when we think of revolution, it's this powered up, very young force where people are pushing and fighting and demanding, that something change. And when I think of a mindful revolution and Qigong as that tool, it's a reminder that something peaceful and subtle can be just as powerful, if not even more powerful. And it's because you're owning your body. You are inhabiting, this incredible living being that is yourself. And when your body and your mind and emotions are at peace, you can actually be more effective in how you create change in the world. And so I think of it as a mindful revolution, not only in terms of one's self-care and healthcare, but when a person is empowered with their health, and especially in a time in our history where there's the perception that we have everything in the West, and we depend on, in some ways, we depend on government, or we might depend on fast exercise. But truly, what makes Qigong different than other types of exercise is that it's a mindful practice that incorporates both the breath, mindful movement, and your vertical alignment. And what I mean by vertical alignment, Devaa, is that this practice actually grounds you to the earth and brings your awareness back to your feet on the earth, and also your connection to the cosmos. So we are in between heaven and earth, and that awareness brings you into more of an upright state. And that uprightness is almost as if you go into the world with that kind of understanding that you can walk straight, you can manage relationships in the same way, that you don't have to bend over backwards or fall over forwards, to make your point. And there's enough violence in the world without us adding to that. And so mindful tools, a mindful revolution begins with oneself. And from there to share that into the world is the great opportunity.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, can you share a little bit more about Qigong and how you can use it to change the status quo?
That's a good question. And I think that when the status quo is the same old, right? We have a dependency, in a sense, on the system. If you see it that way, if you see yourself as disempowered, if you're in pain or in fear, certain times in whether it's our society or within our personal lives, we have this pain or this fear. It can be very consuming. Pain can be very consuming, and fear can be very consuming. It becomes contagious. And so that contagion can spread like a virus out into the world, and that's where people start being disempowered. And so the opportunity is, how do you find peace? And when you find peace, you are actually more empowered. You listen in a different way. You choose to respond in a different way. Whereas when you're reactionary and in fear, the automatic reaction is to either fight or to run. And so with Qigong, it stabilizes you, grounds you to the piece of earth that you're standing on, connects you to a star in the sky that's unique to yourself. We use this image in Qigong as a way of finding our vertical alignment. And so these are little methods, you could say, little exercises on a mental plane that we do to help us come back into our deep heart, into our alignment with both the earth and the sky. And we are, like all living things, between heaven and earth. Whether you believe in heaven, that the concept is more like the spaciousness of the yang sky and the deepness of the yin earth. And so when these two move in balance, there's an economy of movement, there's an economy of thought, at the same time that there's more creativity that can move us forward as not only as a nation, but as a planet. And if we are truly caring for each other, extending ourselves, beyond, haves and have-nots, beyond money, beyond rhetoric, and we're actually doing something that helps ourselves and then extends into supporting our family's health. When you're healthy, something happens. I think that there's more vibrancy, more potential. You see hope, you have hope, and you don't get down the same way that you would if you were not empowered. And so healthcare, I feel, is one of the most pivotal, true self-care and healthcare really changes people's perspective. And we have, at least in the US, a very expensive system. In Canada, where I was born in Canada, they had healthcare covered. And so that was never a concern. But here, people can lose their homes if they don't have insurance. Maybe some things have changed over time, but not greatly. And ultimately, the real healthcare means that you would empower people to learn to take care of themselves and to have tools that they can actually feel vibrant, feel healthy, not depend on pharmaceutical drugs, or even if sometimes those are needed. But if you get dependent on it, it becomes overused, and then the body and the mind and the emotions suffer. And so this is a very important thing, because once you get dependent, it's a dominoes effect. The one medication becomes two. The two, to combat these symptoms, then you need eventually perhaps even a shoebox full of pharmaceutical drugs. And you destroy your microbiome in your gut. All these ripple effects from a system that is not biodynamic, that doesn't support life, actually. It supports the alleviation of symptoms, not even alleviation. It's actually the covering up and the hiding of symptoms. And so when you tune into your body through Qigong practice, you listen and you pause long enough through the slow movements that you could actually pay attention to what's really going on. Pain is a signal, and pain, shows us something is wrong here. I have a lump here. Where did this originate from? Was it an environmental factor? Was it an emotional factor? Because disease can also come from, blocked emotions that start to coagulate, you could say, and they start to form denser blockages to get your attention. And so this is how we understand health in the Qigong perspective. And what I love about Qigong is that it allows people to do self-service, to do self-care, and you don't need any special apparatus. You can go to a gym still if you want, but ultimately, you know, you have only to stand or sit on this ground and be able to move. And so certain movements, some people may not even know what Qigong is, so perhaps I should explain a little bit that
Well, I think
Qigong.
many people think, you know, imagine Qigong sort of like yoga is mainly about these physical movements, and people have often seen someone or a group in a park doing these very slow movements, but they may not know the scope of it. And as you're talking about it, you're talking about a very full spectrum, very holistic, whole way of thinking. So yeah, maybe you could just explain a little more for those who
Yeah.
aren't familiar about the whole worldview of Qigong.
Yeah, I can't speak for the world, but I can at least share my experience. And you know, I came to it through illness in my family, and so when I saw what it could do in terms of pain control and breaking up the pain field that is outside the body as well as within, it convinced me that there was something very special about it. And so even though my husband had died of the side effects of chemotherapy and radiation, I still went back to Qigong to explore more. It was such a amazing thing to know that through very subtle movements, you know, just moving the you know, energy around his body, off his body, without even touching his body, that I could actually have an effect, or that the movements themselves could have this effect. And so,
The effect was pain management that you're talking about?
yes, it was pain management. And at that point, he didn't have enough energy to actually work on himself. So I was learning and just doing this practice over his body. And so there's medical Qigong as well, where you're actually working to break up pain. And the opportunity in Qigong is to move energy. And we're speaking about the flow of qi, or energy, through all the channels of the body, through the cells of the body, and the interstitial fluids between the cells as well. And so when this movement happens, which is supported by proper breathing, deeper, longer breathing, deepening the breath, elongating it, smoothing it out, so that, because you'll notice the difference that when someone is breathing, when they're in a panic, the tendency is like a hard, fast, ragged breath. But when they are silently noticing their breath, and the first opportunity is to notice the quality of the breath, and then the second is to slow it down, and then to smooth it out, and to expand and open the lungs. And even if you're sitting there, even as we're sitting here, you could even do such a simple exercise as inhaling, filling up the lungs, and exhaling, as if we have a ball of a chi ball between our hands. And so the timed movements with the breath actually start to send a signal to the body. Oh, it's okay. We have time to heal. We're giving ourselves the space of self-care to heal ourselves and not have to go into this fight or flight response. And that changes how we respond in other situations in our lives. And so it can definitely help with hypertension, anxiety. A number of my students have used it for depression. So on the either heavy end or the very high end of anxiety, they can recalibrate and come back to center. And so that is the beauty of this practice, is that not only are we synchronizing breath with movement, but you have this kind of smooth, gentle flow, and it moves one into the other. So very, it might look similar to Tai Chi. Tai Chi is actually originated as a martial art. And so Tai Chi actually came from Qigong. Qigong was the mother of the healing arts in China. And the Tai Chi came from that. It was conceived as a martial art. And, you know, with very subtle movements, you didn't even know that you were defending, or a person was defending against an attack. And that's the art of the subtle, you know, that it doesn't have to be abrasive and fighting energy. It can be, you know, graceful and powerful at the same time.
Well, you just talked about some of the you know, practices that you've done that help with anxiety, depression, and I'm seeing you already moving, and you're so grateful in your movements. I'm wondering if there, you know, for those people who are perhaps newer to Qigong, if there might be one or two simple movements that you might recommend for people to kind of add as part of their daily routine to just help bring some of the benefits that you were describing.
Yes, most definitely, Deva. There's, I think the one that I should teach is, it's a showering chi movement, but maybe if I have a time, I will teach you too. The showering chi movement helps with hypertension and high blood pressure. So if there's a tendency for that, if you have a tendency to low blood pressure, then do it seated. But if you have a tendency to high blood pressure, I'll show you. I'll just step back and show how it can be done.
Okay.
Okay. So here, it's as if we form a ball of light. And so what we'll do is the knees will sink a little bit when I go down, and the arms will rise. And so it looks like this. Sink the legs, rise the arms. At the shoulder height, we turn and exhale. The body rises. Inhale, the knees sink and the arms come up overhead. And then exhale, and the hands just gently angle towards the body and brush down to the end. I'm going to show the side view if anyone would like to join me. And it looks like this. Inhale, turn and exhale. Inhale the sky. Exhale down. Okay, and so it is just this rhythmic breath of inhaling the earth's nurturing energy, turning and exhaling fully, and then sinking back to the earth. It's like now like a flower in springtime rising through the earth, connecting above through the stars and below to the earth. And at the end, you would crisscross one palm over the other and come back into what we call the lower dantian. So that's one movement that really helps, I think, to relax the energy. I think it's simple enough that almost anyone can do it. And as I said, even if you're seated, you could do the same thing just with the arms. And the intention carries the healing into the body. So when our mind is focused on healing without expectation, the body says, oh, she is doing something different. She's allowing me space and time to take care of myself. And so that peacefulness comes into the body, and more circulation, increased circulation, as well as awareness of our ground force below and the light from above. So that's one simple movement that I hope people can use even from such a short time together.
That's beautiful. And I heard you said that you have two that you want to teach. So as long as you're in the rhythm, I think we do have time. I would love to hear, what is the other pose you were suggesting?
Okay, there's another one called the Flying Phoenix. Okay. And the Flying Phoenix, I was going to teach making waves, but there's too much legwork perhaps for this first time. But the Flying Phoenix, I will share with you. It's a way for especially women to create secure boundaries for themselves so that they can actually fly. And sometimes we can't get liftoff. We can't really fly because we haven't declared safe space for ourselves. And so this movement, the Flying Phoenix, is actually one of my favorites. And I'll show it to you. It's a same ball of light at the lower belly area. And this is how it looks. We sink a little in the knees, and it's the phoenix opening her wings, rising up as we inhale. And we're just playing with this ball of light between the palms. Exhale. Inhale and open. Breathe in fully. Exhale. So just 3 times of inhaling and opening the wings. Inhaling and exhale. And then we do the pressing out. So now we need to declare our boundaries. Inhale up. Draw in the resources through the wings into the heart, and then press out through the palms. Define your perimeters, but now let go. You don't want to stay in that state. Inhale, sink. Exhale, press out. Rise to your potential, but let go. You need to create the freedom once you define your boundaries. In and out. And release. Soft palms. We drop down, crisscross the palms in front of the body. We turn the palms up, bring it into the heart and lungs. And here there are pressure points just below the clavicle. And these pressure points, they're just in that little valley just below the bony part of the clavicle. And you stimulate these points to help with grief or lung concerns, lung projects. I call any kind of issues that you have, I call projects, because a project has a beginning and an end. And if you're experiencing any kind of sadness that you may not even know of, because sometimes our emotions are well hidden, and then give yourself a hug. So place the hands over the same points, infuse these points with warmth. Take a moment to give yourself that hug. And now, deep breath, deep inhale. Long, slow exhale as you draw the hands away. Kind of see everything in perspective here. We allow the earth to absorb it and recycle it at the earth's core. Rise the hands up to the third eye. Turn the palms up. Absorb the chi of the sky with an inhale. And as the hands come down, exhale and paint a rainbow of colors in your mind's eye all around the body, surrounding the body with light. And then crisscross the palms once again. Come back into the lower dantian. Okay, and that's the flying phoenix movement.
Oh, it's so beautiful to watch you do these poses. It's kind of like ballet almost, with such grace. What did you say about the flying phoenix? You said, can you say a little bit more about the boundary setting that you said it was
right?
For?
I think, you know, in our society, perhaps in our family system as well, we might not have been taught how to create proper boundaries. And maybe you say yes when you really mean no, or you know, you accept what doesn't serve you. Actually, when it doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve the other person as well. But yet you continue to say yes, and you let energies in that that you don't want in your life. And so for women especially, this movement, I feel, is very important, because we open up the borders too much, and we don't have, we tap out, you know, tap our energy out, give away what we don't have, which might be self-respect. It might be that inner voice that is talking to us, but we're not listening because somebody else knows better than we do. But the truth is, nobody really knows better than you yourself know about yourself. Maybe you could, you know, ascertain, or you could guess at what might be good for someone else. But usually I won't, I do my best at least not to make assumptions about other people and what their needs are. We can only say for ourselves. And so the Qigong is a way of training yourself to know when to say no, to be allowed to actually use your voice to say no or to define your boundaries if you say yes, for what you need to grow yourself and to evolve your spirit. Because even though we have this incredible human body that we live in, we are, there was a quote that we are not human beings living a spiritual life. We are spiritual beings living a human life. And that really resonated with me, because we're just reminded that this body is temporary, and we do our best to honor that we're in it and do our best to take care of it, and to be of service, because if we have our health, we can actually extend ourselves to be of service. Mm-hmm. If we don't have our health yet, it's an opportunity to find it again and to nourish ourselves so that we're not tapped out. And that's where creating proper boundaries, even with our loved ones, because sometimes our families, without even trying to, sometimes they just pull and pull, and they don't realize that you might be exhausted. And so when you're in balance, you can say, I love you, I truly love you, but at this time I need to take care of myself, and I know you can do it. I know you have the resources. I'm going to share some resources with you, and I'm going to take this time for myself. And when I have the energy, I'm going to come back and I will, let's play, or let's work, or let's do whatever we do. And so that is self-care. That is the way that we can do it with grace, with self-respect, and honor this life that we've been given. And so this is how I see it, at least, Devaa.
Well, it's wonderful, actually, because I know one of the things that comes up a lot for women in the workshops that I teach is around actually setting boundaries and saying no. And I know a lot of tools and techniques to do that from different perspective, but actually to learn an energetic posture to do that in a different kind of way, working with the energy as opposed to working with the voice or working with visualization or setting boundaries is another really useful tool. So I love learning that. And and I also just really enjoyed this session. I know that we're coming to a close here, and just wanted to give you an opportunity if there are some final thoughts that you want to share with people about how to begin to incorporate some of the philosophy and practice of Qigong into our everyday lives.
Oh, thank you, Devaa. It is a living philosophy. Qigong is really a living philosophy. And it's a reminder, if you do practice every day of a little movement, even a single movement every day, and you reconnect to the stable forces. People are not always stable, but the earth you can count on is always below, and the sky is always above. And so when you are given these reminders through practice, then you have a tool that you can use in an instant. And so practice, why we practice is to be more effective, in a sense, in the world, to have more peace, in our body so that it can heal. And then you have so much more to offer those that you love and those that you serve in your community. So for me, my hope is that if you ever have a chance to experience Qigong, whether it's Radiant Lotus Qigong that I teach or another system of Qigong, that you learn something that you resonate with and that serves you. And once you have that in your back pocket, you can do anything and do what you do with greater joy and greater love. And that's the the gift of Qigong, truly, is to have that vibrancy and to care for yourself, and then let that ripple go out into the world. Yeah. So
you so much. You definitely, I have not spent a lot of time exploring Qigong, and I am definitely inspired to do so based on meeting you and this session. So thank you for your beautiful demonstrations and your wisdom. And thank you for carrying the torch for this path, especially for women. It's really beautiful to witness.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Devaa. It was a true treat to meet you finally.
Blessings to you.